Do you want an easier way to query data in AWS step functions? Hi, I'm Eric Johnson, Principal Developer Advocate at AWS. Developers tell us that when using JPath in AWS step functions, it can be challenging to get the data they want without using a lot of extra steps or transitions. I'm excited to say that with the addition of JSONata support in AWS step functions, now it's much easier to do. JSONata is a powerful query and expression language to select and transform data in your workflows. You can opt into JSONata at a state level or even at the function level. So let's look at how this changes the task itself. It actually simplifies it quite a bit. It used to be that you have input path, parameter, result selector, results path, output path, but now all you have are arguments and output. Arguments before the task or subflow runs, outputs after. Much more simplified task state. So the syntax is updated as well. Let's take a look at this example. I'm using full name here. I want to combine first name and last name to get that, but you'll notice that the full name, although this is a dynamic data, I don't have the $$ anymore. I simply use the full name key and then I combine first name and last name in the JSONata string, and I wrap it, and this is the important part, I wrap it in the curly bracket with the % at the beginning and the end, and that tells step functions that this is JSONata, and it should parse it using JSONata. JSONata also comes with some reserved variables. Now, I'm throwing out a word there that may not make sense in the step functions kind of world. If you haven't heard about the new step functions workflow variables, check out the companion video that I linked below that tells you all about it, because we use them in JSONata. In fact, you're going to see some in some of the examples in a little bit. But this particular reserved variable is the states reserved variable, and it's states input. So states.input will have the raw input to the state. So it's a quick way to get that raw input. You'll have the states.results, which is the results from the task, if successful. You'll have the error output, if not successful. And then finally, the context, which you're familiar with the context, same as in JSON path. With JSONata, you also get the JSONata native functions, string functions, number functions, numeric aggregation functions, array functions, object functions, on and on and on. I can list a whole bunch. But you also get some functions that replace the intrinsic functions that were in JSON path for AWS step functions. For example, the partition gives you a partition of a large array. You can get range, which generates an array of values. Hash to calculate the hash value of a given input. Random seeded for a random number. You can use UUID to generate a UUID, and then parse to deserialize JSON strings. So that gives you all the power of the intrinsic functions built right into JSONata. All right, so let's look at just a couple of examples. First one here is I actually have a workflow that I'm using to migrate a database that has a bunch of records in it, and I need to change the owner from one email to another. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I need the ID that I'm going to change. So I'm going to grab that from states.input.id, and you can see there on line 4, I have ID without the $. I have the curly Q % at the beginning and the end, and that identifies it. And then if you go all the way down here to the bottom, I want to actually create the current date because I want to say, hey, this is when I updated this. And so I can use the now function. I didn't have to grab that from somewhere else or maybe export to a Lambda function to generate that. I could just use the now function right in the middle there. And finally, I'm also using a variable. I'm using new owner on line 13 here, where you can see new owner is just $new owner, and it grabs it from the variables. One other example, and again, I could just do tons of them, but one other example is from the same record, I need to output a change set of all the records, but I don't need the full record for each one. I just need the ID, the old owner, and the new owner. So I can actually take and use the JSONata, again, my curly Q or my curly brackets and my %, and I can say $records because I'm actually storing it in a variable. So that's a variable name, dot, and then I give it a template of the data I want out of each of those records. So it'll actually run through that array, it'll map that array, and I can get the ID.string, and that's specifically for DynamoDB. I get old owner from a variable, and I get new owner from a variable. And again, that takes it from having a huge array of very, very meaty records with a lot of data in them to a quick, concise change set that I can output that tells me which records were changed. There's so much more I could show you with JSONata. This has just been a quick overview. I hope that you'll kind of dig in, read the docs, get into the Workflow Studio, play with that, check out the hints that come up with JSONata, the IntelliSense, things like that in the Workflow Studio. If you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. In fact, another video you really need to check out is the variables video that is a companion to this, and the two of them work, variables and JSONata work really good together to help you be very efficient in your transitions and in your workflows overall. My name's Eric Johnson. Have a great day.